Hi, welcome to Job Search 360, How to Evaluate a Job Offer. My name is Rachel Bernard, and I'm the Director of Graduate Career Development for GSAS Compass, which is the Office of Career Development for the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences at Columbia University. Today, we're going to talk about how to evaluate a job offer. And first, congratulations, if that's the position that you're in. That's a big accomplishment. First, couple things to consider when you receive the offer before you are even able to evaluate it. So first thing to note is that you can't evaluate an offer fully until you have an official offer letter from the company, because you can't be sure of the exact terms until you actually have the offer in writing. Next, this is really important, don't give the employer a final answer or even any answer immediately, but acknowledge that you've received the offer as soon as possible. So you don't want to accept or decline right away, but do acknowledge receipt as soon as possible. When you do that, let the employer know that you're interested. And if they don't already share it, ask when you need to make a decision. Most employers will give you a few days, some a week, some longer than that. And if you need more time, that'll be something you can negotiate, but you need to be sure to ask. Finally, make sure that you have all of the details. Again, you should have all of these things in writing. So the job description, the salary, all of the benefits, the start date. So you want to have all of the terms in front of you before you even start to evaluate the offer. And if you find that you're missing anything, you need to go back and ask the employer for those details before you can evaluate. Okay, so once you have all that information, how are you going to evaluate a job offer? So first, especially if you're an international student and haven't had experience working in the US before, or if this is one of your first jobs or internships, there are a few good things to know. First is that in your contract, almost all employment in the United States is what we call at will. And that means that you may quit at any time for any reason. And also the employer may fire you at any time. And I say for any reason, any lawful reason. So nothing that's discriminatory, but anything related to performance or the financial situation of the company. And this is actually a good thing because it gives employees a lot of flexibility for accepting new jobs, leaving jobs that aren't the right fit. It even allows you to back out of an offer, not the best practice, but you are permitted to do that. So that's something that you should see, you should be expecting to see in any job offer you receive, that it's going to be at will. And that's what this term means. Another thing to know about the US is that in most cases, health insurance is people get their health insurance through their employment. It's not, in most places, it's not something you get automatically through the government like it is in some other countries. Instead, it's through your employer. So if there are no details listed, or this isn't a part of what you hear about in the interview process, you want to make sure that you have this information. And health insurance benefits can vary pretty widely from employer to employer, not only in the kind of health coverage that you get, but also in the amount of money that an employer pays for your health insurance versus what you as an employee would pay. So these are things you want to be sure that you have straight and that you understand about your job offer. One thing to note is that freelance and part-time work, so this would be work usually that's 20 hours a week or less, or sometimes 30 hours or less, these positions often don't come with health insurance. And so then you would be responsible for finding your own private health insurance. And this is something to consider as you're factoring in an overall compensation package in a job offer. Finally, retirement benefits. Again, in the United States, retirement benefits, so the money that you set aside in an account for when you retire, this is also usually private and through your employer. This is in addition to Social Security, which is through the government. But most employers do offer tax-deferred retirement savings plans. And then something to look out for in your job offer is, once again, sometimes these are funds, are accounts that the employee contributes to solely, and sometimes an employer also puts in some money toward your retirement. And so this is another thing, again, as you're considering the overall compensation package to look for. So just wanted to highlight those few things at the beginning. Okay, so the most obvious thing you're going to be looking at in your job offer is the salary. And when you're evaluating it, you want to research industry standards. So there are a few tools for this. There are websites like Glassdoor, salary.com, payscale.com. The next video in this series is about negotiating your salary, and there's a lot of resources mentioned in that module. So what you want to be looking at is the average base pay, but also average bonuses, whether stock options are typical, all of those other elements of compensation, and also even the typical benefits for industries. So for example, sometimes nonprofit organizations will have lower base pay and lower or no bonuses, but to compensate for that, sometimes their benefits are better. And so if you're evaluating an overall package, again, it's important to consider all of these different things and understand what's typical for the industry and that your expectations should align with industry standards. The next thing to try to figure out is company averages. So if you can figure out, because you want to figure out if the salary that you're being offered seems to be fair and comparable to other similar roles at the same company. This can be a little bit harder to figure out, but once again, you can use those same resources for industry averages, but also see through informational interviewing if you can figure out what other people at the company are paid so that you can compare your offer. Then you want to consider your own expenses. So, different people have different salary requirements for all different reasons. So if this involves a move, what are your living expenses going to be? Basically, how much money do you need per month? And is the salary going to allow you to live comfortably within those expenses? So thinking about cost of living, where you're going to be, and any other expenses that you have on a monthly basis. So any debt you're paying back, any dependent care, anything like that. So that's just kind of the basic analysis of the salary that you're going to be offered and what your own individual expenses are going to be. However, it's really important that you evaluate an offer not solely based on the salary that's being offered or the prestige of the company. So there are many, many, many other factors to consider when evaluating a job offer that are very personal, and different people would make different decisions. So here are some of those factors. So health and wellness benefits. Is there a gym membership that the company pays for? Some companies pay for massages, things like that might be important to you. And these things have both a financial value, but then they also just might make for an overall better work-life balance or sense of well-being in an organization. Next, tuition benefits, especially if you think you might want to get another degree. Does the company pay for that, or kinds of other training do they pay for? Or do they, if you have student loan debt, do they help to repay those student loans? Something else to consider. Pension or retirement plan. So some companies, especially government, might have very nice pension plans. And so again, even though a salary might be lower, if you think about if you're at an organization for a very long time, what the payoff might be in your retirement, that's something to weigh against what you'd be making right now. The next few things to consider are sort of work-life balance and other perks at the company. So paid time off, how many vacation days, how many sick days, how many personal days. And is that something that's important to you, to have more time off and more flexibility? Typical work hours, during the pandemic, a lot of people got very used to working remotely. So does this job, if you want that, does it allow you to do that? Is it remote? Is it hybrid? How often are you expected to be there in person? Maybe you want it to be in person. So again, these are other factors to consider for any job offer you get. Next couple of points are about what kinds of professional opportunities would this position open up for you? And so this is asking about kind of your more medium and longer term career goals. So are there professional development opportunities? What kinds of opportunities are there? Does the company provide funding for you to seek professional development on your own? Is there really great mentorship within the company? What are the growth opportunities? And so this is where you can think about, for your own career trajectory, does this role seem like it's going to help you advance and reach those career goals that you have? Finally, office culture and flexibility, just thinking, through the whole interview process, hopefully you've gotten a feel for the company culture, what the vibe is like there. Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel like a place that you want to work? You'd be excited about working there. And finally, if you're an international student, visa sponsorship, if that's something that you're pursuing and is important to you, that's also incredibly important to weigh. Is this company open to visa sponsorship? Does it seem like it'll be something that's conceivable if you're staying with this company going forward and that's a goal of yours? So again, the main point here is to consider options and features of the job offer, features of the company, features of the role, beyond simply the salary. And I think sometimes, that it can be hard to think of all of those different factors and weigh them. So you might want to even create like a pro-con list, and it's going to require that you also really be in touch with your own values and your own career goals. So it's going to require some reflection on your part too. Okay, so let's say that you go through all of this and you decide to decline an offer for a good reason. So what's the best way to go about doing this? First, you really want to be positive and express your appreciation for the offer. You don't need to give a specific reason why you're declining it, and I'll show you an example in just a moment of an email to decline an offer, but you want to be really positive. I would say if you're declining an offer, think of this company as maybe the next company you'll work for, and that's kind of how you want to treat them. You want to be very gracious. So start by being positive. And then I also just want to explain the difference between declining an offer and reneging. So declining is if you've been offered something and you haven't accepted the position and you just turn it down and you say no. However, retracting or reneging is when you have already accepted a position, verbally or in writing, and then you change your mind, and at that point, tell them that you are declining to join the company. So that's a very different situation. Students sometimes ask us for advice about this. And I think in general, you really want to try to avoid reneging on an offer that you've already accepted. It's difficult for a company. Companies don't like it. And you can, to some extent, risk burning a bridge with that company. So again, you want to go into declining, remember thinking that maybe this will be the next company I work for, or maybe I'll work for this company later in my career. And if you renege, it's not going to reflect well upon you. However, there are times when, even though it's uncomfortable and not a best practice, it can be the right decision for you. So you really need to consider what's best for you, for your situation, for your career. And the bottom line is also, whether you're declining or reneging, you want to do so very, very graciously. And we here at GSAS Compass are here to meet with you if you are going through this process and want some advisement. We can help you with that. So here's a sample. You'll see it's very short. So dear Mr. Ms., want to be formal. Thank you very much for offering me the position of marketing manager with Hatfield Industries. It was a difficult decision to make, but I have accepted a position with another company. Say, I'll just step back for a second, say that you haven't accepted a position with another company. You could even say, it was a difficult decision to make, but I'm afraid I will have to decline your offer of employment. And again, you don't have to explain why. Then you say, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to interview me and to share information on the opportunity in your company. Thank you again for your consideration. Sincerely, your name. So very short, very clear. And again, you don't have to give very much information. So let's say you accept an offer. Let's say you evaluate it. Maybe you negotiate. Again, you can look at the next video in the module for that. But you also have to think about how you're going to accept an offer, because professionalism is really important. So once again, you should keep it brief, concise letter that includes all of the necessary information. For example, if you were to share a start date, or if there's any other information they've asked you for, and just telling them that you're happy to accept. Express your gratitude, how thankful you are for the interview process. Hiring is a big investment of a company's time and resources. And so it's really great, throughout the process, you want to be appreciative of that. And then it's also nice to say briefly, why you were excited to work for the company, to just say, one line about I'm excited to help you, work toward whatever goal or contribute to whatever team, just a little bit to make it a little bit more personal. Again, you might want to share just something specific that you discussed during the interview process. Finally, proofread and edit your acceptance. You don't want to be sloppy. You want to really be professional, because this is like, when you start a new job, you always really want to try to impress your new manager, your new colleagues, for the first few months at least of a new job, and that begins from accepting the offer. So you still feel like you're in the interview process and you're starting a new job, so you really want to proofread, be very professional. I don't think they would probably take back an offer at this point, but you just want them to continue to feel really good about their decision to hire you and your decision to join the organization. So be careful, be professional. So we're going to end with a few questions that we get asked frequently from students and our suggestions for how to deal with these situations. So the first one is, I accepted a job offer, but I just got another interview. What should you do? Our suggestion is to consider keeping that interview, because an interview is an opportunity to develop your skills and learn about an employer. So you don't need to feel badly and like you're wasting an employer's time. You don't have to tell them the situation, but just consider, keeping the interview, again, because it's good practice, and you just kind of never know what's going to happen in the future with a company. So I would, our suggestion here at GSAS Compass is to consider going ahead with the interview for that other position. Next question, what happens if I accept an offer and then receive a better offer a few weeks or months later? So here, this is a little bit different from reneging, because if it's, if a period of time elapses between when you accept an offer and then actually start a job, and then if you're offered something new, remember the point I made at the beginning of the presentation about at-will employment, that in most positions, you can quit at any time. There's no set period of time you have to work for a company. And sometimes students ask, well, doesn't it look bad if I have a very short-term position on my resume? And again, there's no one answer to that. It really depends on what's best for you and your career. So if it's a really great offer, then it might be the right decision to leave, even if you've only worked someplace for a few months and have that on your resume. So again, you kind of really have to consider the specific situation, but it can be okay, and it can be the right move to do that. Finally, I received a job offer from a company that I don't like. Do I accept it? Okay, so again, it's a personal decision, depending on many, many factors. The biggest factors likely are your personal financial circumstances. So do you urgently need an income? For some students, if you are an international student, maybe your OPT is set to start soon, and you really need that to start a job to activate that OPT status. Those are just some examples of reasons why you might want to accept a less than ideal job offer. And again, just going to go back to the previous point about at-will employment, and that even if you accept a job offer and work someplace for a few months, you can keep looking, especially if there's something about the situation that's really not a good fit for you. So you can accept a job, start working at a job, and still be applying to and even interviewing for other jobs. So there's no set amount of time that you need to work at a given company, especially if it's not the right fit for you. So these are just a few frequently asked questions. Usually, all of these things are very personal decisions. Different people will handle them differently. And we here at GSAS Compass are here to advise you and help you make these decisions in your job search. So that's it for today's presentation on how to evaluate a job offer. I hope that this was helpful in your next, for the job that hopefully you just got an offer, and now you have a little bit more food for thought as you consider whether or not to accept the offer. I definitely encourage you to watch the next video in the series about negotiating, because we always encourage everyone to try to negotiate their job offer, if not for salary, then for another factor. So thank you again for joining today. Best of luck with your search.